The Cheektowaga PD have been going out of their way to try to help out ICE and Border Patrol, even though ICE and Border Patrol have not asked the Cheektowaga PD for any of their help. It's actually gotten to the point where the town may be leaving itself vulnerable to a lawsuit, and there seems to only be like half a dozen concerned citizens who are trying to do something about it. Do you want to help them? This whole thing started about 3 months ago when a local paper, the Investigative Post, published this report detailing how different police departments in the Western New York area are handling their connection or involvement with ICE or Border Patrol. And it turns out that the police in Cheektowaga are handling their relationship with ICE very differently than all of the other police in the 716. First off, we should clear up how this is supposed to work. If you are somebody who is illegally in the United States and you commit a crime, you get treated the same as everybody else. You will get arrested by state or local police. You will have a trial. You will go to state or county prison to serve out your sentence. But what state and local police are not supposed to be doing is they're not supposed to be getting involved in federal civil law enforcement. You can Google the difference between civil and criminal law on your own time if you want to know more details, because it can get kind of complicated. But the short version is, if it's a paperwork crime, that's a civil offense. So local police are not supposed to be getting involved in the enforcement of federal paperwork rules. For example, immigration. I feel like this is pretty intuitive once you stop and actually think about it. I mean, imagine a scenario where a local cop, one of your town cops, pulled you over for having a busted taillight. And during your interaction with the cop, you say, "I'm sorry, I just don't have the money to fix the thing right now." If that cop then said, "Why not? Do you owe back taxes to the IRS?" And you said, "What? What are you I don't." The cop said, "I don't know. You just said something that gave me a reasonable suspicion that you're broke and probably owe back taxes to the IRS. I'm going to take you into custody and bring you to a federal jail for a month while your lawyer and a lawyer from the government fight about whether or not you're all up to date on all of your taxes." I think you would understand why that's not supposed to work like that. The local cop doesn't have that jurisdiction. The local cop doesn't have the training or understanding. He doesn't know how taxes work. That local cop is supposed to be doing other shit. He's getting paid to address local crime, not moonlighting for the IRS. And now we've created a scenario where the local populace is going to be scared to have any interaction with the police. They're not going to call 911 when they're the victims of crime, and they're not going to contact the tip line when they have information about crime. Because now I know that every interaction I have with the local police puts me at risk of ending up in a federal jail, even if I've done nothing wrong. Other thing that I'm realizing a lot of people don't understand is whether or not you're in the country legally or illegally is not always black and white, because the provisions of visas can get super complicated. People have to go into immigration court all the time and say, "Yeah, judge, I know that I didn't file for the extension of this B2 visa within 120 days of the stamp on my I-9, but I had this extenuating circumstance that is documented in the..." And now a bunch of lawyers have to argue for a couple months about whether or not you're going to count as legally here or illegally here. Maybe you've been hearing a lot about asylum seekers in the news recently. Asylum is when you go to an immigration court and you admit, "Yes, I entered the country illegally," or "I overstayed a visa illegally, but I did it because of some reason. I'm running from the mob in my home country, and I got an uncle who lives in Michigan who says I can live with him. I'm part of a labor union in my home country, and they're making them illegal and rounding people up. There's a civil war in my country, and I know that I'll be drafted the moment I get off the plane." And of course, you can't just claim those things, right? You have to provide evidence and go to a trial and prove it to a judge. And there do exist a list of scenarios and conditions where you can prove if that scenario applies to you. The United States will say, "Okay, yeah, you can at least stay in the U.S. temporarily. We won't deport you." And I'm sorry if you didn't know about that, but we've been doing that literally since World War II. The movie Casablanca is a movie about people who are stuck in that process. But it can take 2 or 3 years for those cases to work their way through the system. So during those 2 or 3 years, are you somebody who's legally in the United States or illegally in the United States? It's like asking, like, is the dress gold and white or is it black and green? Are you beginning to understand why this shit is messy and complicated? Are you beginning to understand why it's just like more clean and hygienic to say the local cops can take care of the local shit, the federal cops can take care of federal shit, and it makes more problems than it's worth to like mix the two? In fact, in 2018, the New York State Supreme Court had a ruling that said local cops should not be getting involved in immigration enforcement. In Albany, they're talking right now about passing 2 different bills that would like kind of make this like an official state policy. One is called the New York for All Act. The other one is called Local Cops Local Crime Act. And I'm not really sure what the difference is, but you can Google them if you want to know more. Now, of course, there's loopholes to all of this. And the big one is this: while a local cop is in the process of doing their duty of addressing local crime, if they accidentally come across a piece of information or see a piece of evidence that gives them, quote unquote, a reasonable suspicion that the person that they're interacting with right now is in the country illegally, they can detain that person and bring them over to immigration or customs and say, hey, I think this person is in the country illegally. Do whatever it is that you got to do. And that's what this Investigative Post article was all about. It was a look into how different police departments in Western New York were navigating or using or ignoring altogether that loophole. They found the state police and the Buffalo PD had done it 0 times. They couldn't find a single case of somebody having a non-immigration interaction with Buffalo PD or the staties and it ending with that person in custody of immigration. They found a couple municipalities, Lewiston, Amherst, Tonawanda, that had done it once, twice, maybe 3 times. But in 2025, the Cheektowaga PD had done it 21 times. 21 different instances of a Cheektowaga cop having a regular interaction with a Western New Yorker that ended up with that Western New Yorker over in Batavia. What's more, one of the reporters from the Post was able to find 3 people that were all in the country legally. One of them was born in the United States that the Cheektowaga cops had arrested and dragged over to that facility. That's just 3 times that the reporter could verify. It could have happened even more, right? The ICE facility is under no obligation to tell the Investigative Post how often it happens, but through good journalism, good investigative work, the Investigative Post was able to find 3 different occasions where a Cheektowaga cop dragged somebody over to the ICE facility, and the ICE facility just let that person go because it turned out the person was in the country legally, wasting Cheektowagan taxpayer money, wasting Cheektowaga Police Department time, a waste of ICE's time and money. I'm sure those wrongly imprisoned people ended up having to pay lawyer fees, not to mention now the public knows that it can't trust the Cheektowaga PD, and possibly opening up the town to a lawsuit. And this is not a hypothetical. During the first Trump administration, the sheriff down in Suffolk County started running this scam. If anybody ended up in the Suffolk County jail with an alleged immigration violation, even if that person got their situation resolved, even if that person posted bail and was ordered to be released, the Suffolk County sheriff wouldn't do it. He would hold on to the person until ICE could come and get them a couple days later. This was, of course, illegal. There was a class action lawsuit, and just this past November, Suffolk County was ordered to pay out $112 million to 675 people who had fallen victim to the scam. Great move, Sheriff Bobblehead. Imagine what that county could have done with the $112 million that you cost it. But look, that lawsuit now opens up a precedent. If somebody decides they want to sue the town of Cheektowaga, all they have to do is say, look, what happened to me, my interaction with the Cheektowaga PD was similar enough to the type of thing that was happening down to folks in Suffolk County. And that's it. That's your lawsuit. Because if it was against state law down there, it's against state law up here. It's all the same state. Oh, and you know when ICE does those worst of the worst lists, look at all of these killers and child molesters that we got off the streets. Those are not people who were taken into custody during an ICE raid. Those are inter-prison transfers. Those are people who are already locked up. And all ICE did was they did the paperwork to have the person deported as soon as their jail sentence is done. ICE can't even pick those people up if there's a warrant out for their arrest because ICE can only serve civil warrants. They don't have any jurisdiction to serve a warrant for a criminal violation. Occasionally, there will be people who have already served time for a crime and are now, or at the time of committing the crime, out of status, and ICE will go pick that person up to have them deported. ICE calls that a detainer, but even that is pretty uncommon. ICE just takes people who have already been imprisoned for crimes and takes credit for the arrest, pretends that they did it. Whenever ICE released one of those worst of the worst lists in Minnesota Public Radio will go to try to verify it, and 100% of the time it's all bullshit. So surely there must be somebody who works for the county or maybe even the state whose job it is to make sure that local cops are all on the same page when it comes to this sort of stuff. Nope. That sort of police accountability or standards enforcement just doesn't exist. The only reason we're talking about any of this right now is there were 3 women who lived in Cheektowaga who were doing the grown-up responsible thing and reading the local paper and keeping up to date with local news, who also were going to town halls, and they were the ones that realized that every single individual member of the Cheektowaga Town Council either didn't know this was going on or knew about it and had no intention of doing anything about it. Those three women started a group that's calling itself Erie County Women United. They started talking about the situation online, and that's how I heard about it. There's now like 5 or 6 other people who are helping Erie County Women United out, but still to this point, 100% of all of the organizing and activism around this issue is driven by those three women. And there's a ton of different things that you can do to help them out. No matter where you live, a huge thing you can do to help out is just spread the word. Because at this point, I would be shocked, if more than like 1% of Cheektowaga even knew this was going on. To stay in the loop, follow Erie County Women United on Facebook and on Instagram and on TikTok. If you follow the links in their social, you can find the Erie County Women United website, where you can find a ton more reading and information. You can also go over to the Investigative Post's website and for free read the December 9th article that broke the story about the Cheektowaga PD. There is a Cheektowaga Town Council meeting that is open to the public every second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 5:30 p.m. at the Cheektowaga Town Hall, which is 3301 Broadway. Now, the first hour of every one of those meetings is open to public comments. And Erie County Women United have been organizing these Pack the Hall events, where they try to get as many people as possible to show up and use the whole hour to impress upon the Cheektowaga Town Council how important this issue is to the public. And even if you don't want to speak, please show up and just be a spectator. That's what I've been doing. I've gone to every single one of them so far just to watch, and I've met a lot of really cool people while I was there. If you can't show up in person, all of the public town hall meetings are live streamed on YouTube. And if you go to the Cheektowaga Town YouTube page and go to this live section, you can watch the last 3 Pack the Hall events. There was one on the 13th of January, one on the 27th of January. There was one on the 10th of February. The next one upcoming is on the 24th of February. And remember, the public comment section is only the first hour. So if you live, work, or shop in the town of Cheektowaga, if you do not live in Cheektowaga, but your kids attend the Cheektowaga Sloan School, those meetings are there for you. That is your opportunity to go to the town government and give them your feedback. Please use it. Erie County Women United is trying to get the Cheektowaga Town Council to just pass a resolution that acknowledges, yes, we understand this problem, we understand that it is a problem, and we would like to see our police do something different. And the town council won't even do that. There are 7 people on the Cheektowaga Town Council. There's 2 Republicans on the town council, and we're not even going to worry about them. It's 2026. Nobody expects a Republican to behave like a serious adult, right? So forget about that. That leaves us with 5 Democrats, and it would only take 4 of them to pass this resolution. Now, of those 5 Democrats, one of them is an absolute hero. That's Stephen Nowicki. Nowicki understood the situation right away. He understood why it was important, and he's been very clear that he wants to see the police department behave differently, and he has not minced words about it. But the town's other 4 Democrats are dragging their feet, and they cannot give Erie County Women United like one straight answer as to why they're having a problem with this resolution. Resolution 2026-92. But with the exception of Stephen Nowicki, everybody on the board said, oh, the language is too specific, oh, it's not specific enough, or they just ghosted Erie County Women United. Hey, so here's all of the email addresses of all the Democrats that are on the Cheektowaga Town Council. Feel free to email these people every single day and say, please stop dragging your feet, pass Resolution 2026-92, or talk to Erie County Women United and see how the language can be cleared up so you will pass it. Except for that first address. That's Stephen Nowicki. Send him an email saying, thank you. Thank you for being a grown-up. Thank you for doing the right thing. But for everybody else on this list, get your shit together. And the most helpful thing that you can do, get in touch with Erie County Women United through their website, through their socials, or send me a DM or leave me a comment and I'll try to put you in touch with them and volunteer your time. Maybe you can help them in updating some of their online stuff. Maybe you take the time to write some alternate versions of the resolution so they can go to the town council and say, here's option A, B, and C. One of these has got to be good for you. A couple of these women have already made the move to volunteer to be part of the Democratic Committee in the town of Cheektowaga, which is the board that selects who's going to run for those town council seats. That's a first step in trying to remove some of the do-nothing Democrats off of the Cheektowaga Town Council. So if you are a registered Democrat living in Cheektowaga, you can get on that same board. Some of the folks who are currently involved are talking about like a long-term plan of trying to create a police accountability board to make sure things like this don't happen again. A police accountability board is a group of civilians, usually people who are kind of like experts in a specific field, so maybe like nurses, faith leaders, social workers, professors, stuff like that, who volunteer their time to review police policies and procedures and their training manuals and try to find spots where, oh, that might cause you a problem later down the road because XYZ. If you think you might want to get involved in something like that, let us know. But seriously, if like only 1% of the people who see this video volunteer to step up and actually do something, real change might actually happen.